It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.
Hello everyone and welcome to the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. Today, still on the topic, monitoring and evaluation of blended learning models, we will be discussing how receptive this model of learning is in Nigeria and if Nigeria's education system is truly equipped for this learning system. Our guest on the show today is an esteemed teacher, trainer, administrator, public speaker, and education technologist, currently serving as the Director of Academics at NewGlobe. In his role as the Director of Academics, he works with NewGlobe, technical partners to the Lagos State Government on the Eco-Excel Intervention Program. He plays a pivotal role in shaping the program's success, overseeing the instructional design, and deployment of world-class instructional content. His commitment to educational equity and access is evident in his work. He has been instrumental in initiatives aimed at narrowing the digital divide, ensuring that all students, regardless of their socio-economic backgrounds, have equal opportunities to access quality education through technology. His dedication to inclusive and accessible design principles has made education more accommodating for diverse category of learners, further establishing his reputation as a top player in this field. Let's welcome Mr. Nduka Akujobi. Hello, Mr. Nduka.
Thank you for having me.
Great, it's good to have you here. As someone who has been in Nigeria's education sector for over 15 years, meaning you have seen it all at some point, how receptive are we to the blended learning approach of learning, the blended learning system of learning?
Well, blended learning is inevitable, especially after COVID. So when COVID hit, it was clear that we had to start learning using e-learning, and some schools and individuals had already started applying it. But immediately after COVID, it was clear to everyone that we had to get on board. And even it is becoming so prevalent that even governments are applying blended learning approaches at scale to public education sectors.
When we mention at scale, which is the last thing you said, my head immediately goes to the public education system in Nigeria, because that's where you have the numbers. Mm-hmm. So with this, do you really think that Nigeria's educational system, our landscape, is ready to adopt, is truly equipped for the blended learning system?
You know, the great news is that the landscape is not only ready, it's already been implemented at scale. After COVID, it was obvious that blended learning is inevitable, and a lot of schools had already started implementing it. But remarkably, the state governments started applying blended learning at scale. NewGlobe is at the forefront of working with governments to transform the educational system. And in our work in Nigeria, we've partnered with the Lagos State Government with Eco-Excel, recently Bayelsa State Government with Bayelsa Prime, and then previously with the Edo State Government and the Kwara State Government. In all of this system, we have worked to transform learning outcomes to foundational literacy and numeracy by leveraging technology. What it means for such a public system is that you want to solve some of the core problems. So what are those problems? You're talking about teacher attendance, which is something that the public schools have been notorious for. Teacher knowledge or grasp of instructional content, teacher time on task, and teacher motivation. Now, to solve those problems, you want to deploy a technology-based instructional system. We do that primarily by deploying tablets to the teachers and and having most of the school management systems running through those tablets. Now, what that means is that we can deliver standardized instructional content. We can also deploy scientific-based teacher and classroom management practices through those tablets. Now, when you have such a system, you can make sure that teachers are in school. You can make sure that teachers are delivering the right content and they're delivering it at the right time. You can make sure that teachers are doing what they're supposed to do in class at the right time. And then most importantly for blended learning, you can collect all sorts of data about how the system is working. And when you collect that data, you can make data-driven decisions about where the system is and where it should be. So to look back to what your question is, Nigeria is not only ready for it, we're already doing it, and we're getting fantastic results in all of the states.
This is really interesting. And with all what you've said, and let's use the states that you have mentioned as use cases,
Yeah.
what would you define as success?
So one of the things we should remember is that when we talk about blended learning, it is basically leveraging technology to do what we would ordinarily have done in the traditional classroom setting. Now, what do we want to see? What are our outcomes? We want to reduce learning deprivation to the very minimum, and learning deprivation is the number of pupils who can read a grade level passage by primary 5 with comprehension, and I'm talking about the basic education sector because that's where we primarily operate. You want to make sure, and in layman terms, that you want to make sure that every primary school pupil can read. And not just read, they can read with comprehension. And then one other aspect of it is that they can read according to global benchmarks.
Okay.
So there are global benchmark for how many words a primary 5 pupils should be able to read. And that's what we want to see happen. And that's what the system is setting out to solve using blended learning and technological approaches.
Okay. With all you've said about teacher engagement and how this blended learning approach gives more times for teachers to engage, you're able to track attendance and all of that, how are you able to incorporate, them into the decision-making process? How are you able to get their buy-in to ensure that they don't rig the system against you?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I'll answer the question with 3 major points. It's kind of complicated, but I think first, the system works. In many of our territories, Lagos included, we've improved learning deprivation dramatically. We've reduced it dramatically. In Lagos, for example, we've halved the number of non-readers from about 36% to less than 19%. So it works. The teachers know and they care about pupil learning, so they know that it works. 2, teachers are able to give feedback. They can call customer care. We have customer care in every of our territories, including Bayelsa and all the other territories. They can call customer care and report something: my device is not working, I need support in this regard, or I've just looked at the lesson plan and I see that you're using a French name. Can we have a Yoruba name, for instance? That will make it more relatable to the pupils. We can take that feedback, we put it down, and we improve the lesson plan to make it more relatable and more contextualized. And then finally, there's a lot of support in terms of coaching and mentoring. The teachers, apart from a 10-day introduction training, teachers are constantly mentored and coached about best practices in education and about the why of this methodology and how it improves their teacher practices. All of those help to significantly improve teacher buy-in.
Great, thank you. So it's good to see that they are not left out, and all the data that you would inherently gather at the end of the day, they play a very large role in making all of that available. This would be my second to the last question, and it would be: what is your advice to, I'd say, other states? And I'm asking states because you are dealing on a state level. So what would be your advice to other states looking to incorporate this blended learning approach, primarily around, monitoring and evaluation? What do you have to tell them? I know there's so much cold feet and dragging and thinking it's so expensive. We might not be able to see all the outcomes at once.
Well, I think the most important reason is that of all the large-scale education intervention types, research has shown that this is the most effective. Scores over 99 percentile in terms of large-scale education intervention.
This blended learning approach,
the methodology which NewGlobe uses, which has a lot of blended learning infused within it. Now, it works. Another thing is that when you want to deploy a large-scale intervention like this, it has to be fit for purpose. You have to consider factors like internet. Do teachers need internet to access it, for example? Like, for example, with NewGlobe tablets, they don't need the internet to access it. Only the teacher smartphone needs to be connected to the internet. Teachers can connect to the teacher smartphone and just sync the content. Now, that's important because in some rural areas, they do not have internet connectivity.
Yeah.
You think about electricity. How do you solve the problems of electricity? So I think the big thing is governments, should realize that this is the way to improve learning outcomes dramatically. And when you improve learning outcomes dramatically, you improve the economy of the states. Because if you look at it, the countries with the highest level of literacy and numeracy are also the countries that are the most developed.
Top performing,
so there's a connection. So one, it is important. Two, it should be fit for purpose. You're not just handing out devices. Because you want to use blended learning. You should look for a system that works in your locale and that works effectively.
Great. As a parting shot, what do you see as the future of blended learning and its effectiveness in improving learners' learning outcomes?
Apart from being a public education administrator, I'm a teacher at its core, and I teach standardized tests like the SAT, GMAT, and GRE. Now, what I see in those tests is more pupil involvement in their own learning. Pupils and students taking more control of how they learn. Most of all these courses have learning management systems where pupils can learn at their own pace. They can learn at a more enjoyable rate. And as we progress with technology, technologies like AI, and concepts like gamification will make learning a lot more fun for learners. And I see the future is learning that is more enjoyable, that is more student-centered, and where students have a lot more control about how they learn, how they measure their progress, and how they adapt to their particular needs. And for teachers, it's ever going to be a more powerful tool, because they can have more control about what their pupils learn. They can also be able to remediate aspects, specific areas where the pupils need more attention. On the whole, it's going to be much more fun for pupils.
So blended learning is going to make learning fun. Thank you so much, Mr. Nduka Akujobi.
Thank you for having me.
And to you, our listeners, with all you have heard from Mr. Nduka Akujobi, do you think Nigeria's educational system is truly ready to take on the blended learning challenge? I'd call it the challenge. I'd love to hear from you. Send us an SMS or a WhatsApp message on 0703-165-0809. You could also join our Telegram or WhatsApp channels on EdTech Mondays Nigeria to join the conversation offline. It's been a great time on this week's episode of the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. I had an amazing time listening to Mr. Nduka. But till next week, same time, same station, I remain your host, Chinyelu Akpa. It's bye for now.
EdTech Monday is proudly brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.